3 bar is out, 29% stronger than the competition. They got 7/8 bar. They got the oversized bars. The folks at Vortex Racing have been supporters of this show for a long time, and they're welcoming our next guest on the show. It is the 50th anniversary of Daytona Supercross this weekend, and there's plenty to talk about when it comes to that. And perhaps nobody better to talk about Daytona and the history and this weekend and everything else than the editor-in-chief of RacerX Magazine, my boss, Davey Coombs. What's up, DC? How are you?
I'm your part-time boss.
Part-time boss. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate it, man. It's yeah.
No worries. You know, I was thinking between you and I and Kiefer and Preston, 3 of us have qualified for nationals.
That was wow. Touche. Nice one.
That one hurts. Kiefer.
How long did it take you to think that up? That was great. That was good.
About a second.
Man, that's a good one. Yes,
that is great.
I like it. Daytona coming up this weekend, Davey. There's not a race on the calendar that has probably changed more than Daytona, but there's also not a race on the calendar that's more unique than Daytona Supercross, huh?
Yeah, Steve, I think that's very well said. No race has changed more, but no race has changed less.
Mm-hmm.
It is the most unique round of any series I can think of. I can imagine when MotoGP used to go to Isle of Man, or some, the GNCC series used to have the Blackwater 100. Daytona is just an outlier in the middle of a bunch of, beautiful, well-lit stadiums with, kind of, no offense, but kind of cookie-cutter tracks. You know what to expect. You know what's coming. And then you go to Daytona, and there are literally 4 first turns, at least this year.
Yeah,
you guys have seen you guys have seen the diagrams, right?
Yeah, I saw it. I think it looks like a better track, though. I think in years past, to me. I mean, we'll see how it plays out, But I like it early on. I think it's been designed pretty good.
It's definitely a nod to the old school. It's long. There's less jumps. I think the hope is that it's going to get really rough, be a really long race, and whoever wins will have not lucked out. He will have earned it.
Yeah, and we're going back on laps too, right? Are you way on?
Yeah.
Well, they're supposed to do the time thing, but even if they do X amount of time, 20 minutes plus 2 laps, those laps look like they could get up to about 1:30 by the look of the diagrams. And it's definitely different. It'll be interesting to watch. I hope that. I hope it translates as well as they mean, as far as a nod to the old school, and it doesn't just become long and boring.
Travis, your thoughts on Daytona over the years? You certainly raced it a number of times. Did you race the old school Daytona, right, during the day?
Like Davey said, it's changed so many times. I feel like I've been through most of the development or changes of Daytona. I used to race it during the middle of the day.
Yeah.
When it was super hot. I raced it at night. I was there for that mud race in 2008. So one thing about Daytona is it's always nasty.
Did you like it? Did you
Yeah, I've always done really well.
Yeah,
really well at Daytona. Always in the top 5. Daytona's been good to me because it's a long race. It's a rough track, and being smooth and precise pays off at Daytona.
And how many times when you were out there, you were like, "Hey, we were doubling this, and then now we can't double this, and now we got to double the braking bumps coming into this turn before the double." You know what I mean? Like it changes.
So the first time I went to Daytona, I was not ready. It was 1998, I think, and it was during the day. And back then we did 20 laps, and it was 1:30 lap time.
Yeah.
So the race was close to 30 minutes. And I got so tired, I was going around the whoops, and I got black flagged.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I got so tired, I couldn't hold on to the bike, so I started going around, and, they just pulled me off.
Was that on Chaparral?
No, I don't even remember. I was like a privateer, I think.
Okay,
yeah. So,
yeah, Travis, didn't you get on the podium like in 2003 or close?
Yeah,
in the 250 class?
Yeah, thank you for reminding me. I was close many times, Davey, but I never got on. This one race, I battled Michael Byrne for the entire race, and we were neck and neck over the finish line. And, I've gotten 4th a bunch. I've gotten 5th a lot, but never gotten on the podium.
Davey,
I've been on the podium there. I've been on the podium there many times. Usually talking to Ben Sheetwood, sometimes Jason Wygant, sometimes just sitting there until they threw me off.
Right, just hanging out there. You did.
It's the only place to watch.
You got 7th there one year, Davey. Is that? Do I got my race right?
No, I got ninth. I got 9th in
Yep.
85, and that's when it was a daytime race, and no one really understood what 125 Supercross was or was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And it was almost like a round of the Florida Winter Am Series, but it was cool, and Eddie Warren I think won that year, and Rodney Barr was there, and a bunch of fast guys, but at that point I was already focused on the next thing, which was college.
Right. And so is it true back in the day that Gary Bailey would literally use telephone poles? Is that true?
It was unbelievable, and yeah, he did.
Wow.
But at that point, it wasn't that Gary was masochistic or wanted to do evil things. It was because the Speedway wouldn't let him bring any outside soil in, and they also wanted to make sure that he stayed off the grass as much as possible. So the only way to build up jumps was to pile them over like an empty, semi-hauler rig, or to take foam poles. And at first the foam poles were brilliant. And then the sand wore away, and then they were just foam poles. And it was, I can remember it as clear as day. And it was as gnarly as you think, but at least it was consistent.
Yeah.
You knew what you're going to hit. It was a foam pole.
And then early 90s, it went across the Speedway to another section, which I don't even know where that is.
Over the asphalt?
Yeah, over the asphalt,
Yep.
into like a back section, which I don't even know where that was when I go there now.
It's like super bikers.
right,
It's awesome.
right.
If you watch, if anyone listening Googles the 79 Daytona race, this is the one where Jimmy Weinert passes Bob Hanna at the very, very end. They were cutting across the Speedway. They were going behind, gates. They were going into the infield. It was a motocross track, but the thing is, the jumps were basically by that point all carved out in the middle, and it wasn't a Supercross like we think of today.
Mm-hmm.
But it was long and it was brutal, and the bikes that they were riding at that time, it could not have been fun.
I remember one time as a privateer mechanic, I leaned my bike up against one of those palm trees behind the gate. Guy freaked out on me. A guy, like a flagger guy or like an official guy, like freaked out on me. I'm like, I don't know, bro. It's a palm tree. He's like, get your bike off that tree. I'm like, sorry, man.
Sorry, man.
Yeah, sorry, bro. I don't know. I was watching the race.
I don't know much of the history like Davey does, but to this day, is it still Ricky Ryan, the only privateer to win the event?
I think Ricky Ryan is the only privateer to ever win a Supercross race, and we could talk about whether CR or 22 Motorsports is privateer or Moto Concepts, when Brayton won or whatever. But Ricky Ryan showed up in a minivan from California. He was not. He didn't have any Honda parts. It was 1987, and a really strange roll of things happened in his favor, from first turn pile up, the rain, Jeff Ward has a problem, Keith Bowen has a problem, Ricky Johnson runs off the track, and he just kept going and going. And I think it was a 12-lap race that year. It was cut down like it was in 2008, like Travis was talking about. And when they threw the checkered flag, he was out front, and they all just kind of looked at each other. And one of the funny things I was talking to Brett Smith about from We Went Fast today is Honda, which sponsored the event and which should have been completely stoked that Ricky Ryan, this privateer, won on a production bike. They didn't run a win ad.
No way.
Because they didn't have a photo of him. They didn't even know he existed.
Wow.
And it was just kind of one of those weird things. And Ricky had one of those careers where, he went to Europe, he did this, he did that. But that one day, it just, the lightning struck and it worked out. And no one has been able to do that since. And no one did it before that either. So, yeah, Ricky was not only the only privateer to win Daytona, but the only privateer to ever win a full-blown Supercross.
And then I did a podcast with him, and I asked him, hey, where's the Daytona trophy? And he's like, I don't know.
Wow.
I'm like, what? Like, what? You win this? And he's like, I don't know where it is. I'm like, wow, Ricky, come on. Anyways, Davey, let's get some phone calls here. We have some people on the line. And first up, this guy, we know him well. Randy Richardson from Michelin. What's up, FMIP? How are you?
Oh, doing well. How are you guys tonight?
We're good, man.
Good. I wanted to call in first off, I was planning to call in and say thanks to all of the listeners that participated in the motorsport, the Free Tubes promotion. So greatly appreciate that has ended. But thank you so much for everyone that bought into that.
No, yeah, that went really well.
And then the next, Davey, thank you for having Vintage Supercross. I am so pumped to be there on that's March the 10th, right?
Yeah, on Tuesday. And Randy, I'm stoked you're coming. I know it broke your heart last year that you couldn't make it there. And we just found out today that Doug Henry's coming too.
Oh,
that's phenomenal.
Between, I mean, those are the three gods of vintage racing: Jeff Stanton, Doug Henry, Randy Richardson.
Oh man, it'll be neat to race there. I did race there as a privateer in '93, 4, 5. So to be back inside there and in the tri-oval tearing up that beautiful grass will be so much fun. So I look forward to it. And thanks again for all you do to put on such a great event.
Well, again, Randy, thank you for coming. And hey, by the way, Grayson's at Clemson now, right?
Yeah, Creighton. Yeah, he is.
Creighton.
He sure
I'm
is.
sorry.
Yeah, Creighton. No worries. He's a freshman there and doing well. So, and you have relatives there as well, I think, right?
I was at the Clemson game in November. My nephew is part of the Clemson family now, so I've become a Tigers fan. And
awesome.
It's weird because up here in Morgantown, West Virginia, the only orange you see is usually like a Can-Am chainsaw.
Or in a construction zone.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So Sunday and Monday, the RC Amateur Supercross, and then Tuesday, the Vintage Supercross at Daytona? Yeah.
And we tone the track way down. In fact, we tone it way down, Saturday night after the Supercross, because and Travis will tell you that's a gnarly track, let alone added in sand. But the way that Don Flanner and Mark Barnett and of course Ricky build it, it's super challenging on Saturday. And so we tone it down for Sunday and Monday, but then we let Jeff Stanton get out there for Tuesday. And Jeff is a true vintage rider. He's more worried about his bike braking than jumping anything. So it's a fun track, and that vintage thing on Tuesday is it's more of an after party than an actual party, and a lot of fun.
Well, I'm looking forward to it, and I'll let you guys go. And again, thanks so much, and thanks for everyone on that motorsport promotion. Appreciate it, Steve.
Cool, Randy. Thanks, man. Appreciate it doing it.
Bye. Later, Davey. Take care. Bye.
All right. That's Randy Richardson from Michelin. Another caller for you, Davey. Sam's on 3. Sam, you have a question for Davey Coombs?
Yes, I do, Davey. Your credit to the sport and everything, but I can't think of a better place to have the next Motocross of Nations than Daytona. It's probably one of the most historic venues in all of motocross. That's just my opinion. What do you think is the chances of it happening?
Hey, I was in Assen, Holland last September, October, and for what the track lacked as a traditional motocross, it's certainly made up for facilities. I've talked about the idea with Mr. France and some other folks, but I'll be honest with you. I think I'm a traditionalist, and I think when the Motocross of Nations comes back to America, my fingers are crossed that the weather will work out and it'll go back to Redbud, and we'll take another stab at those Europeans on our track. And if the weather works out, I think a lot of people would enjoy going there. And then in a few years, we'll see about some other venues. But right now, my fingers are crossed that Redbud gets another shot at it.
All right.
I would love to see High Point, too.
Did I just make news?
Yeah, nobody listens to this show. Probably not. Thanks, Sam. Thanks for the call, man.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Sam.
Davey, for yourself, what do you like which Daytona do you like the best? We had the day race. We had back in the day more of a motocross feel. We've had the night race now where it's more like traditional supercross. And that year that Chad beat Ricky, that was more supercross than it is even now. Like, it's gone the other way since kind of RC started designing it. Like, which Daytona do you like the best?
There's so many, and to your point, you know, I Justin Brayton winning a couple years ago was literally, I was down in the fan section screaming with a bunch of other people because I was so happy. I like hugged Tony Alessi afterwards because I know what it meant to him, let alone what it meant to Justin.
Yeah.
But I remember that 05 battle, like you said, when Reed held off Ricky, probably, arguably, Reed's best win.
Yep.
Just because he went into the lion's den where Ricky, you know, was king and put it to him. And I also remember I remember Ricky's first Supercross win there, which was in 2000. He actually went 21 laps because the flagman missed him. And I think that's when everyone knew that they were in trouble as far as Ricky's fitness went, because he just laid down the law on the 21st lap too.
Yeah.
And he not only was he the first guy to get the checkered flag, he was the last guy to get the checkered flag.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
I remember 03 as a mechanic, got third, which is super cool. Like Red Dog podium Daytona, like I'm like super stoked. Like, and then but Ricky was about 5 turns from lapping us in 03. It was Ricky.
That's insane.
It was Ricky, Chad, Timmy, and Ricky lapped 4th.
Gosh.
And he was, I'm not kidding you, 4 or 5 turns from lapping Red Dog in 3rd.
Wow.
So I'm like, yeah, we got 3rd. Oh, maybe it's not that good.
Like, how do you celebrate that? Like, as Timmy, does Timmy get
I
excited?
think you just ignore it. You forget. You block that fact out of your memory.
The track is so challenging. You're just happy to have completed the race.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just,
and the trophy looks the same on the mantle too. No one says, so how close were you getting lapped?
Yeah.
I got 3rd.
For me, Daytona's the only all the years I raced, Daytona's the only track where I go and I have to take both feet off the pegs. The ruts get that deep.
Yeah.
Wow.
Did you feel, Travis, as a Honda factory rider, more importance, more emphasis, more pressure, more bigwigs around the truck at Daytona?
Yeah, you do.
You do?
Yeah, there's a lot of Honda stuff there.
Right.
You have a lot of Honda events. And that's what I was going to ask Davey or you guys, because I haven't been around that race in a while. We did a lot of preparation when I was at Honda. I was there 2 weeks before, riding at Ricky's, riding in Florida, doing a lot of testing. I think that's one of the reasons why I always did pretty good there. Do teams still do that much prep for this race?
They honestly, I don't think they do, Travis. And I remember that vividly. You know, like there's a Daytona track at the farm, and there's a Daytona track at this guy's house, and over here. But you know, the way the schedule works now, you know, back in the day, Gainesville was then, and even after that, there would be maybe a week off. But the way the calendar works, there is no time off, and you almost look at Daytona as like, okay, we're just going to manage this event. And you know, when you look at a motocross specialist like Eli, and also a really good motocrosser like Ken Roxon, you start thinking, I think if you're those guys, like, hey, we're just going to get through this and then stick with our settings and do the next 6 or 7 races. The series turns here at Daytona, but before there was more time and sort of a necessity to do it, but they've sort of evolved the event to make it more like a normal Supercross.
Yep.
And so that means you don't do the work that you guys were doing, you know, back, 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, in my experience, the people that I talk to, and even years ago, the Supercross suspension stays on. Just loosen it up a little bit. You know what I mean? Soften it up, loosen it up, make it a little bit worse, but than Supercross stuff. But it stays. Yeah, that prep is kind of done.
I think. Yeah, Steve. The real change came when they turned the lights on.
Yeah.
They shortened the track. The Speedway began allowing them to bring in clay for the jump faces. And I think Ricky is a testament to that he was like, if I'm going to do this, you got to give me the resources to do what needs to be done. and Barnett still has a hand in it, of course, and Don Planner. And I think if they hadn't made those changes, it might not still be here. I think that they saved the popularity of it with the OEMs and with the industry, and instead of having remember Jody used to call Gainesville that orphan national, and with great effect, because it was you had to do that one national, and then you went back to Supercross, and then you came back and did Hangtown. And well, if Daytona was going to be a Supercross, Daytona had to evolve and mature into a modern Supercross, and it has. And I think I personally think it's a better event. Yeah, I miss those days.
Yeah.
And but Travis will tell you when the sand was black as can be, and you were literally one rut the whole way down the tri-oval, and then you got in the air for a minute, and you maybe got to switch a rut, but it was just that was a crazy tough race, but it didn't look that good for spectators.
Mm-hmm.
And what they have now is spectacular.
Yeah, I agree. It was absolutely. I would agree with that 100%. It was a tougher race, and it was a different race back in the day, but better race, I'm not so sure, right?
Well, to Sam's point, who called in earlier about having the designations there, man, if you could run the sand up over the walls and do it in October as part of Bike Week or October, what do you call it, Oktoberfest, you could build a gnarly, crazy motocross track there. And Mr. France, I think, would be all in, but it would require some time, and that would be more like the original Daytona than what we have now. But the original Daytona, it had to take place in the middle of the Supercross series. Mm-hmm. And Travis, I'm sure, can tell you the changes and that extra work and everything. And then as soon as the race was over, man, that stuff went away. You had to immediately pivot back. You had to get ready to go to, whatever stadium's next. And it was a weird segue.
Yeah, we would go out at Yamaha and test at Chad's place and Timmy's place, and the whole team would be there, and they would take the bucket and just go out in the field and make these random holes with the bucket and pile the white and black Florida sand on there. And then I remember so many times we'd get to the race, and after the first practice riders would be like, hey, put my old stuff back on. And you're like, oh, so all the stuff we did this week, just trash it? Yeah, okay, all right. Cool. We'll put your stuff that you used to ride.
Go back to Supercross.
Yeah, you just go back to Supercross stuff. But loosen it up, soften it up a little bit. But yeah, it was kind of funny how it changed over the years for sure. And when you look at the winners, like Kudrowski smashed it this race. Stanton, of course, smashed it. Ricky was amazing at this race. Like you don't luck into this at Daytona win. The guys who you look at the roster of guys who won Daytona, like, they're bad dudes because you just don't get a start. Well, J-Lo almost did. J-Lo almost did. But other than that, like, you just don't get into a race like this and pull it off with that length of time.
No, and I agree. And I will say, in hindsight, what Chad Reed did to Ricky that year in 2005 when it was all lined up for Ricky to do it, that was a masterpiece. And Ricky was always in motocross mode. Ricky was always in championship mode. Ricky was always, and for Chad to have done that, in hindsight, he must look at that and think, I got that little son of a bitch that day.
Yeah, no, he really did.
It was amazing. But by the way, Jason Lawrence kicking around the idea coming back to Loretta Lynn's.
You guys see that?
What do you think?
Yeah. But, I mean, can he really make an area, a regional, and a week in Tennessee?
Well, hey, I know he's going to do better than Chris.
Oh, okay, thank you.
That's all I know.
It's that kind of show tonight.
It's that show, everybody. It's that kind of show. Yeah, I saw that. J-Law could be back.
But J-Law will find out. J-Law will find out exactly, Travis, what you found out, what Berner found out, what Raynard found out, what Sebastian Tortelli found out. You go to Loretta Lynn's as a vet, and there's some guy there that you've never heard of.
There's no one going to be Mike Brown there. I'm telling you.
He's going. Well, yeah.
J-Law comes prepared. I don't care. He ain't beating Brownie.
Yeah. Right.
It ain't gonna happen.
Right.
Yeah. One of my favorite stories ever is Tortelli was talking to coming to Loretta Lynn's, and I was like, hey, and I told him, I'm like, you're gonna have wet moto, you're going to have a hot moto, you're going to have a rough moto, and in the end, someone you've never heard of is going to beat you. And he's like, ha, not really. Sebastian's a sweetheart. Tortelli goes, after the race, he comes out and goes, hey, you're right. I cannot believe I got beat by Renner, the guy to win the X Games. And I'm like, no, that was actually Renner's brother who beat you.
Oh, man. So Saturday Supercross, Sunday, Monday, RC Amateur Supercross, and Tuesday, Randy Richardson on his Husqvarna Vintage Supercross at Daytona. Right, Davey?
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun, and I think it's really cool that well, maybe it's not so cool, but we're at the point where we're celebrating 50 years on an event, and that says a lot to the staying power of motocross, and I'm really happy for the people at Daytona. And man, there's not a lot of people who went to all of these. If I could think of one person's going to be there this year, maybe Barry Higgins, who got second in that first Supercross way back in March of 1971, when it wasn't actually a Supercross. It was the Daytona Moto X.
Oh, it was?
And it was part of the Florida Winter Am Series, and the fact that they're going to have a 50th, and it's going to be, as big and as cool as I think it's going to be is kind of wonderful. And I imagine that long after we're all gone, they'll still be having dirt bike races at Daytona.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thanks for coming on, Davey. Appreciate it. 50 years of Daytona, everybody. Thanks. Thank you.
All right. See you, Chris. See you,
See ya.
Travis and Mathis.
All right.
See you, bud.
See you, Davey.
That's Davey Coombs, everybody. Brought to you by Vortex Racing. Email Jake at Vortex Racing for a hell of a deal on sprockets or handlebars or anything else that Vortex has. We got some phone calls. Let's go to
Light 'em up.
Ray. What's going on?